I've given Traktor a lot of stick in recent years, but it all comes from a place of love. There was a time when I was all in on the software, using it exclusively for a couple of years, but sadly, towards the end of the last decade, Native Instruments themselves just seemed to lose interest in Traktor altogether, and it simply stagnated for far too long. Things have changed now though, and there is a really dedicated team at the company who are aiming to progress the software as fast as they can. I know this because I met with them last year, and when I get the presentations about these updates, I'm usually speaking with actual engineers, not just PR people, and that is a rarity. I begin by saying all this because I want to be clear. There's some very cool stuff here in Traktor Pro 4, features which have been requested by users for a long time. They are still late to the party with those features, no doubt about it, but the momentum is there and things seem to be finally happening. We'll talk about flexible beat grids first. This is something which I, as an open format DJ, absolutely need in my DJ software. It's not just about being able to sync tracks with tempo fluctuations, although that is a factor. It's also about accurate looping, beat jumping, and tempo synced effects and remix decks. If the beat grid isn't correct, then those things will never work perfectly, and Traktor has never had the ability to grid variable BPMs properly until now. The process works much like it does in other DJ software. You add extra grid markers manually, then you can stretch or contract the grid from that point on until you need to add another marker. Native call these sections tempo zones, and from my testing it works nicely. The process is pretty intuitive. Once a correct beat grid is set for the entire track, that actually brings one of Traktor's existing cool features to the fore, the ability to manually select which deck is the tempo master. So when using sync or playing with remix decks, you can choose to have the track with the variable beat grid as master, so the other things will follow that varying tempo, or you can lock it to something else, in which case it will play along at the new fixed tempo. With most other DJ software, you don't get to choose for yourself. This is all great, but here's why, in my opinion, the feature isn't quite finished yet. It's because Traktor's automatic beat gridding still can't do variable BPMs. You're going to have to grid those tracks manually. And when I look at the number of classic funk, soul and disco tracks in my collection, nope, life is too short for that. I'm not going to complain too much about it. My regular platform of choice, Serato, doesn't do variable beat grids automatically either. But we now live in a time when Algorithm's DJ Pro can pretty much beat grid an audiobook, and Rekordbox gives things a good try. So both Traktor and Serato are still slightly behind the curve here. What I will be interested to see is how well apps like DJ Conversion Utility are able to translate existing variable grids from other applications into Traktor Pro 4. Because if I can transfer all of my custom grids into it from Serato, well, that could be a game changer for me. The other big headline feature in Traktor Pro 4 is the ability to do stems. Hang on Mojaxx, Traktor did stems first, I hear you cry. Well, they did, kinda. All the way back in 2015, Traktor introduced stems decks to their software. These could take special stems files, which you could buy from places like Beatport, and then split them into 4 parts, typically drums, bass, melody, and vocals, when playing them in the software. The catch was that those files were created using studio stems. The parts were isolated by the producer in the studio before being exported as stems files. This meant they always sounded pretty much perfect, but the only stems tracks you could access were those provided by the artists and labels, and outside of a few electronic labels, the music industry wasn't really interested, so this was very much a case of an idea being ahead of its time. Fast forward to 2024 and all of the big DJ software platforms have real-time stem separation, which means you can take any track and split it into those parts pretty much on the fly. Some are better than others in terms of quality. Rekordbox is still well behind most, but it is, on the whole, everywhere. And now with version 4, it's also in Traktor. Sort of. They've done it in a way which leverages the existing infrastructure they already had in the software, which has some benefits and some downsides. On the positives, their stems deck concept was always cool and it remains so. As with pre-made stems files, you can not only adjust the level of each stem, you can also filter them individually and even send them to the effects in differing amounts. So if you want to, say, add a delay to just the vocals or just to the bass and melody, you can. That is awesome. And where some apps will change the main waveform to show which stems are active, Traktor Pro splits it into 4 different waveforms so you can see what's happening ahead with each part, and I really like that. The downside, however, is that real-time stem separation still isn't actually a thing. On most other platforms, you can load a track to a deck and the separation is automatically done in the background if your computer is powerful enough. If it isn't, then you usually have the option to pre-analyze tracks for stems, and then a stems file of some description is saved to your device. With Traktor Pro 4, the second way of working is the only option. If you want to play a track as stems, you'll need to right-click it and have the software create a stems file. This can be done as you're playing, but their algorithm does seem quite demanding, so it takes a good few seconds and it hammers your CPU whilst it's doing it. I also can't find a way to do them in batches either. It seems to be one track at a time only. Then you are left with a stems file for that track on your drive, which, as is the standard, is about 4 times the size of the original file. With other software, unless you deliberately choose to do that process, then the on-the-fly stems analysis files are only cached and then deleted after use. But if you decide to analyze a lot of stems files in Traktor, you can expect your drive to fill up pretty quickly. At this point, I'll quickly shout out an app called Nuo Stems. Last year I tried their app, which basically performed exactly the same process as Native Instruments are now doing, just outside of Traktor. It was a great concept, but I just didn't think the quality of the algorithm was quite good enough for me to recommend it. And another side note, the stems files that are created, as they were with the OG Traktor stems files, are multi-track audio files within an MP4 container. They are stored in the Traktor folder in your music folder, and whilst the names are hashed, you can still sort them by date added and work out which track is which. At that point, you can load the MP4 file into audio editing software like Audition or Audacity and extract the different stems from it to use in a DAW or export to CDJs or whatever you like. A pretty handy bonus. But because those stems files are not encrypted in any way, there's no possibility at present that this new feature could be used to create stems for streaming tracks. It's restricted to your local music only. So some limitations to be found in this way of working for sure, but most importantly, how do they sound? Well, as with all of the competitors, it seems to be better with some tracks than with others, but overall I am very happy. I'll give you a few examples here, and I'll also be updating my stems comparison video to include Traktor so you can hear it alongside the results from other platforms.
Girl, you showed up and everyone here looked right at you. 'Cause it's obvious you're special from a glance. If you find a tempo, then I'll be your shadow. And around we go, round we go. Look for your tempo, and I'll be the echo.
Everybody say well. I say boom boom boom. Well, let me hear you say well. I say boom boom. I just fell from the mothership. We about to rip it on another tip. Good trip. Check out how it we. Catch us in the hospital, your body in a fluid. As me come from the dead side, Mr. Pakacha with him. I say boom boom boom. Well, let me hear you say. Well, let me hear you say well. I say boom boom boom. Now everybody say well. 2, 3. Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera.
compañera. Me gusta tu color, tú me quitas el estrés, tu sabor, tu amor, de la cabeza a los pies, tú serás pa' mí, yo seré pa' usted.
I've not been messing with Traktor Pro 4 for too long, but my takeaway is that while there's no real standout area like, say, vocals in Virtual DJ or drums in Serato DJ Pro, I think it just does a decent job across the board, much as Algorithm's DJ Pro does. I'm not sure what the underlying algorithm is that Native are using, but they've definitely got some solid processing going on alongside it, and it's streets ahead of the first generation of Stems tech and indeed the current offering from Rekordbox. And one thing I really love is that ability to apply effects to individual stems. So if, say, an isolated vocal sounds a bit ropey, for example, you can throw a little reverb on it and help it sit better in the mix. What else is new in Traktor Pro 4? Well, there are some new kits for the pattern player, so fans of that will be happy. They've given the look of the GUI a bit of a tweak, nothing drastic, and the app still looks pretty bad on Retina displays, so that still needs work. And they've gone one step further with the ozone processing on the master. Previously it was just a limiter, but now there's a boost option which makes it into more of a maximizer or compressor. It has an intelligent release control and is designed, as they say, to allow you to boost the loudness of your sets without distortion. This definitely is an interesting idea, and I'm intrigued to try it on a big system and see what kind of impact it could have. And finally, we have what I think is the most interesting new thing about Traktor Pro 4, and it's not even a feature. Traktor Pro Plus, the subscription service to open up extra features, that is dead. All the current Plus features are being rolled into the standard version of the software, and Traktor is going back to being a one-off purchase with paid major updates as it used to be in the past. At a time when software as a service is becoming ever more prevalent, I absolutely applaud Native Instruments for this. Being realistic, it may be that if you upgrade to every new version, things might not be much cheaper as a consumer. The upgrade from 3 to 4 is $75, for example, but not everyone will want or need to upgrade every time, and so the idea that you aren't tied to paying a monthly fee just to keep using the software you want is one that I know appeals to a lot of users, me included, so this is a great move. In the comments, let us know what you think of the new features in Traktor Pro 4. Is there enough in there for you to want to upgrade or maybe come over from another platform? And what other features would you like to see Native Instruments turn their attention to next? Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.